Hi everybody, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. I am Julie Montagu, the American Viscountess, and today we are going to be discussing coat of arms, heraldry, the crest, and really what all those different elements mean. And in fact, further on in the video, I'm going to be showing you, right behind that chair right there, our Montagu sandwich coat of arms. A little bit of background around that is that the family that I married into, yes, of course, invented the sandwich. That was the fourth Earl of Sandwich, but it was the first Earl of Sandwich, Edward Montagu, who obtained the title Earl of Sandwich from Charles II. How did he get that title? How did these coat of arms come to be? Further on in the video, once I show them to you, I think it's going to make a lot more sense. So be sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel. Definitely like this video if you do like it. So let's get started. What is the difference between coat of arms? What is heraldry? How do you distinguish the crest? It's all very confusing, but I'm going to unpack it for you and make it very simple. And you might even win the next trivia night or quiz night wherever you are. Let's get started. I have such an interest in these coat of arms, and not just because I married into a family that has a coat of arms. I travel all across the UK, and I'm able and lucky enough to visit some of Britain's most spectacular historic houses. And I've seen the fabric of these buildings are plastered with coat of arms, not only on the exterior, but carvings on the inside as well as stained glass. And that's because, you know, back in the day, that's when they really wanted to show off their power and their wealth and their success, and of course, their achievements. That's why you'll see these coat of arms all over these incredible historic houses. So how did it all begin? Well, it began a long, long time ago. A man in full armor was unrecognizable. Is he on my side or is he on their side? So each man wore a distinctive coat so that he could be recognized over his armor. Subsequently, it was called his coat of arms. These arms were then displayed on his banner, his horse cloth, his shield, and of course, his coat. And then this coat came to be worn in his civil life too. But, and this is a big but, no two men in the same region could wear exactly the same coat of arms. So what did they do? They began to differentiate themselves from one another with personal symbols, especially to mark their possessions because few people could read in those days. And then this coat of arms was then usually depicted on a shield. But we've got a whole lot more to go through here. What about all the other elements in a coat of arms? The crest, for example. The crest is not the same as a coat of arms, which I'll tell you a little bit more about later. But what is the crest? Soon thereafter, though, a personal crest of light wood or even boiled leather was put on top of the helmet. So a crest, I always think of the crest as like the prominent tuft of feathers of the crown of a bird's head, but it's a little bit different than that. But it is usually an animal. Below the crest is a silken mantle, which is a loose, sleeveless cloak or shawl that's hung down to keep the heat of the sun off the back of the armor. The mantling was then kept in place by a wreath of twisted silk, although here's where we see the coronets come into play. Some great men wore a chapeau or a hat, or again, the crest coronet instead of the wreath. Usually the helmet, and in our case, the Montagu sandwich coat of arms, we do have the Earl's coronet. The crest and the mantling are usually depicted above the shield, but not always. The mantling can also be found below the shield as well. With the addition of a motto for many quote-unquote great men on a scroll, as they really sort of formed the achievement above an ordinary gentleman. Thus, they had their personal motto on that scroll. I'm going to show you our motto in a second, and I'll try to read it in Latin as well. But now we come to the supporters who are really on either side of the shield. Certain prominent men, like our ancestor, Edward Montagu, the first Earl of Sandwich, were allowed to depict their shields held up by supporters, which then stand on a mound called a compartment. So The full achievement or coat of arms of a peer, like our family, is made up of his coat of arms, his chapeau, coronet, the helmet, the crest, the mantling, the motto, supporters, and compartment. Now, a question I get asked all the time is, do coat of arms belong to just a surname? Well, the answer is no. There's no such thing as a coat of arms for a surname or a last name. Coat of arms are inherited in the male line, and so are surnames. But a coat of arms is granted or really confirmed to one person and their descendants in the legitimate male line. So only that family group will be entitled to that coat of arms, not everybody of that surname. So as such, many people of the same surname will often be entitled to completely different coat of arms, and many others of that surname won't have a coat of arms at all. But hear me out. You'll be able to get one if you want to. Stay to the end of this video. But again, for any person to have a right to a coat of arms, they must either have had it granted to them or been descended in the legitimate male line from a person to whom arms were granted or confirmed in the past. Our coat of arms was granted to us by King Charles II. Second frequently asked question is, what is a crest though really? What's the difference between a crest and coat of arms? And there's a popular misconception that a crest describes the coat of arms, but in fact, it's just really, as we discussed, it's just a specific part of the full achievement of the coat of arms. So, and it's usually that object that's placed on top of the helm. I'm lucky enough to live in one of Britain's best-loved manor houses, where I'm surrounded by wonderful paintings, furniture, and other historical artifacts. I just love learning more about history, which is why I subscribe to History Hit, who is sponsoring this week's episode. History Hit is an on-demand channel and award-winning podcast network which helps me in my research and tells the stories that shaped the world. One of the great strengths of History Hit is the amount of original content, and I'm currently fascinated with the history of the royal family, and in particular, I love the series Inside Windsor Castle and the history of Westminster Abbey. There are hundreds of programs, 1,000 plus podcast episodes, and 5,000 history-related travel articles. And every week, they launch 15 new podcast episodes and 2 new programs. I've set up a special code for you to get 50% off the first 3 months when you use the code American Viscountess. Link here and down below. History Hit is a wonderful resource for anyone like me who wants to learn more about the past. I'm sure you will enjoy the channel and podcast as much as I do. So let's have a little look at the Montagu Coat of Arms. So we're looking at the Montagu Coat of Arms, and you can see right here at the top, we have the crest. So we do have the crest, which is a bird. Underneath there is the mantle. Now, sometimes you'll see the mantle in coat of arms that it's, hanging down or hanging around or twisted around or even twisted at the bottom. But here our mantle is rolled up. Then, of course, you have the coronet, and this is the Earl's coronet, and you can decipher that by the amount of baubles here, and there are 5 balls on top. And underneath is really the chapeau. So if you did have a coat of arms where you do have a coronet, so again, that can be a duke, it can be an earl, but underneath is where the chapeau would go. Chapeau is like a hat, and there is the brim of the chapeau. So if you did have a coronet, you're most likely to put the chapeau underneath the coronet. And then on either side, we have the 2 supporters of this, really the Montagu sandwich coat of arms. And here we have Neptune, and he is the god of sea. And the reason that the College of Heralds, who were the ones who created, if you like, this coat of arms for Edward Montagu, the first Earl of Sandwich, is because he was head of the Admiralty. He was the one who brought back on his ship, brought back King Charles II from exile, brought him back from Holland so that he could be crowned the next king. And of course he was. And so this represents really the strong seaman that Edward Montagu was. On the either side, we have an eagle, and this eagle really dates back before Edward Montagu was given his coat of arms. There were other Montagus within our family who had a coat of arms prior to ours being created, and part of that was an eagle. And so you will see within the shield here, which is quartered, you can see the two eagles on either side, and this really represents the surname Montagu, or really the family. And then of course we've got the Montagu lozenges, and Montagu in French means peak of the mountains. So you can see here the peak of the mountains, and then below that's really the reflection of the mountains. And we have 3 of those here. And I would say that the other Montagu family members who are, quite far away as far as, I don't even know how many times removed cousins, but they do have Montagu coat of arms, and you will see the Montagu lozenges in their shield as well, because that does represent the surname. Then down below we have the motto, and it's on a scroll, and I'm going to read it in Latin, and it's Post tot naufragia portum, which means, our motto means, after so many shipwrecks, the harbor. And that really makes sense for, in particular, Edward Montagu, the first Earl of Sandwich. He was a great, he was head of the Admiralty here. And then underneath, this is the compartment. It's all in one sense, resting on the compartment. And this coat of arms was made for the 4th Earl of Sandwich, who was the one who invented the famous snack that we all eat right now, the sandwich. And I can tell that because the date is 1765, and also it says the Right Honorable John Montagu, Earl of Sandwich, right here. So this is the Montagu coat of arms, and I hope that that's helped explain a little bit more about heraldry, crests, coat of arms, the different elements around it. The good news is you can get your own coat of arms. These days you can, and I always think of these coat of arms nowadays to really represent you and your family. So do comment down below if you have a coat of arms, or if you're thinking about getting one created for you and your family. Thanks so much, everybody, for joining me. Do like this video if you liked it, and hopefully you did. Be sure to subscribe and turn notifications on, and I'll see you back here every week on my channel, American Viscountess.